Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Tommy Zamp, and I'm joined with the one and only Jay Brown at his studio, Starling Studios up in Saratoga. Jay and I have gone out and on his new adventure for this year, and he is co-producing, mixing, and mastering all of my new singles for this year. I will be releasing a new song every month, and for the month of January, we went with the first single as a song called "This Is What It Feels Like," and Jay and I are going to go into the session in Pro Tools. We're going to talk about, actually Jay's going to talk about what he did, his process, and how we got to the end result, the final mix. So Jay, welcome. Thanks for hanging out, man.
Thanks, man. Glad to be here. Very psyched to be working on this this whole project with you. This has so far been awesome. We've got 3 songs in the bag as far as the audio goes, and they'll be coming out in the next couple of months. But this one was a great time to work on, and psyched to get into the session and show some people how the world of music really works.
Perfect. So I know I sent essentially this went to you. I had Dave Tyo play drums.
Yep.
And then I did the rest of it here at my house, and then I sent you the whole session. And so let's just start off. I know a lot of people might not know how to send a session somewhere else without having it on an external hard drive. So let's talk about that first, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, I mean, these days it's really great to be able to work remotely with so many different people, and it's really easy. You sent me a whole session, meaning you had everything recorded on the tracks you wanted. You had some plugins on there for ideas that you had as far as equalization, levels, panning. Dave Tyo's drums were recorded straight into that session. So this was a really easy one to get. I just got a zip. I think it was zip. Yeah, it was zipped from you over, Dropbox or Hightail or any of those platforms that you want to use. I downloaded it. I opened it and pretty much started from there. Other ways to get people sessions. Sometimes you just get WAV files starting from the beginning. Sometimes you have to get them out of a different, DAW, like Ableton or something. But this has been a really easy process. I love it when it's like this because the ideas, as I said, are already there from your end as far as, kind of a rough balance. And I can kind of use that as a starting point. So when you watch a lot of these kind of inside the mix videos, you hear a lot of different things. Well, I zero everything out and I pull things into a template, or, I do this and that. And I think one thing that's interesting about how I've been working for, the 15 years that I've been doing this now is that depending on how I get the session, it changes every single time. With yours, I'm not rebringing your audio into a template that I have set up. I definitely used some, session data import from other sessions that are similar. Maybe some other, I don't even know where they came from, honestly. Maybe something that I worked on with you before, or another big rock session. So I at least have the plugins that I want, on the right tracks. But I didn't go through the process of zeroing things out or starting from scratch. So I just built on what you already had there, and I love working like that.
Oh, great. I do know that there was some hiccups in when I actually first sent you the session. So for everyone watching that has never done this before, when you save copy as or copy in, make sure you click the box that says audio files, because I think I sent you two of them.
We did a couple rounds. Yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah, it's great, man. There's nothing here.
This empty session looks really good. I can only imagine it sounds really good.
It's going to be a hit.
Yeah, make sure when you save copy in, you click all audio files. Yep,
there it is.
Absolutely. And there were some audio files didn't link, but whatever. That's my job on my end. Everything got there eventually, and it all sounds great. So psyched to check it out.
Excellent. Well, since we are in our episode of Inside the Mix, let's get inside this mix, man.
Let's do it. Cool. So here we are. This is the full session of This Is What It Feels Like by Tommy Zamp. And let's first just listen to a couple seconds of this. I'm sure we'll have the full track going somewhere, but here we go from the top. Cool.
Sounds
Yeah.
great, man.
It does. It does. I agree. Yeah. So let's kind of break this down. So when I get a session, as I said, this session was pretty well put together. Some things that weren't to my liking, couple things I moved around. I got rid of some tracks that I wasn't going to use, or things that even, Tommy on his end had muted or made inactive. I checked out what they were first and then just kind of got them out of the way. So the first thing I do in any mix is really just session cleanup. Did a lot more editing on the vocals, taking breaths out, taking any, clicks in between lines. And if you look at these vocals, you can kind of see where that was done. For this particular style of music, I did actually leave in stuff, like this breath in here, you can see, and things like that. If this were pop, maybe I'd get a little more meticulous about taking even more of those breaths out, or, certain styles of music. But I really liked how those fit in there. They do add a certain feel to it. But editing was the first thing I did with this. Dave Tyo, who did the drums, luckily did a lot of the drum work for me. And by work, I mean editing things like the toms, right? One of the first things you want to do before you start mixing is clean up your drum sessions. And the other thing, which was really cool that he did, he actually went ahead and did some time correction on these things too, right? Just putting some of these off by a couple milliseconds to make sure that things were really in time. So you can see this is off by 114 samples, the snare. So what that's going to do is really line that up with the overheads, right? And it's really, when you get into the world of mixing drums, one of the biggest things that people overlook is the idea of phase between your kick and snare and your overheads, and a big part of that phase is actually having your tracks lined up, right? So that was something that Dave took care of on his own, and he also included some of the samples that he used, which is cool too. So this is a snare sample. Let's see, this is the sample that Dave Tyo provided. So if we listen to the drums without any of the samples that I put in here, which might actually only be one. I don't think I even used a sample on the kick, but these are the drums that Dave sent over. And then if you get rid of the sample that he provided, that's what the drums really sound like. And then if you get rid of the kick sample, right, now we're back to sounding like just a drum kit. But you throw in that kick sample, nice big roomy kick, you throw in the sample he sent. Yeah, now we've got some life. And now throw in the snare that I used on here. And now we've got a big, all of a sudden, this drum kit that I know was recorded in a very small room, just because I know what Dave's studio looks like. Same thing would be the case in my room or a lot of home studios, right? You don't have this massive room to set up room mics like that. So samples and reverbs are a great way to make your drums sound bigger than they were. For the particular sample that I used, I do use Slate Trigger, and if you'll notice, there are 4 different samples in this. So a lot of layering goes into these different types of sounds to make these drums sound this big. We don't need to go through each one of these, but, a snare that sounds like that, a big fat snare. I will go through all of them. How about that? A harder attacky snare, and then a snare, hard, room. And all together, they sound like that. It'll be okay when that moment comes. So, just a little look at how drums get to sound this big when they really are all just being recorded in home studios. Dave did provide a room mic as well. I actually ended up not using that. He provided a hi-hat mic as well, and I did not use that because the hi-hat sounded great in the overheads. So,
wow. A lot going on, man. It's a lot going on, but it sounds great. You got to take the time to put in the work to get the outcome.
Yeah. And again, Dave really did an awesome job with recording these and making sure that everything was already kind of phase appropriate. So I didn't have that much work, as much as I would have anyway, right? And then EQ-wise, some just standard EQs. He provided a couple EQs too. I don't know if I even changed some of these things because they sounded good. That's what an EQ he had on there. And then when you go to the drum bus, we do have some compression on there. So again, if we solo these drums and listen to these without this compressor on the drum bus, if we take that off, again, we hear a pretty different sound.
Yeah.
We don't get as much as that roomy, compressed sound. And then the other thing that's happening here, I do have some pretty heavy compression from an API 2500 on the New York City bus, parallel compression. You'll hear different things about parallel compression. Some people like it, some people don't. I use it on anything, especially songs like this that need those big compressed sounding drums. I know if you watch videos with Crystal Lord Alge or Michael Brower, parallel compression is a huge component of how they get these big sounds, whether it's vocals or bass or drums. So, and that's really what's going on with the drums here. It's not overly complicated. EQ wise, just a couple things, routing, and then some compression to really bring these things to life. So bass, Tommy recorded the bass and some great playing there. And if we listen to the bass, I forget what you actually had on this when you sent it to me. I know you use a lot of Universal Audio stuff, none of which I have. So that was one of the big things for some of the sounds that I got from you was just saying, all right, well, I see you've got compression and you've got maybe an amp simulator or something on there that I don't have, right? Just shows up as inactive on my end. So I needed to, those were some of the things that I needed to start from scratch with. And for this, another Slate plugin, some of these new amp emulators that come with the Slate All Access Pass, and I think they're really cool. Certainly, you can find a lot of different things out there to use, and this one fit with the tone. Preset number 1, bread and butter bass. I think I took out. There might have been overdrive or something on there. I know I took something out of this chain initially. But then I just adjusted some of the settings on the amp, messed around with the cabinets a little bit. I was trying to bring the mids out a little more than any wideness on this. I don't even know if that was necessary. It's funny when you go through your plugins, and I think anyone who's been doing this for a while can say that you come upon something, you're like, what is that? Oh, yeah, cool. Adjust the gain of the mono content. All right, well, this is a bass. Let me see what I can do with that. Right. Whether that did anything or not, it's on there.
So one thing I wanted to point out too is that we were talking about you were adding the triggers to the drums, and the one thing that's great about recording nowadays is all the technology that is readily available at any given point in plugin form or whatever. My point being, there wasn't one actual recorded amplifier. I didn't mic up an amp. I didn't mic up a bass cabinet. Everything was done without miking anything. So the bass was recorded direct. So it's great that you use the Slate plugin to pull up speaker emulation and amplifier plugin, and it just really goes to show you what kind of fantastic tones you can get from what all of the options are out there, from Slate to Universal Audio. You can do so much in a really small space. So I think it's
absolutely
great.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know you just did the Universal Audio Auxbox review. So many different things that you can use with this, and I know people that don't even go that far, right? It's just a DI straight into Pro Tools in 11.
Yeah,
has some great sound, and Slate stuff has some great sounds these days. And so, whatever you got, but yeah, you definitely don't need to blow your neighbor's house down if you're trying to record a rock album these days.
Unless you really don't like your neighbor, then
then crank it up. I mean, I'm working with a young teenager right now where even the drums are all programmed. There's no live drums on it, right? And it still sounds good, and they're pretty rocking songs. I'm not talking about like little, small sounding drums like some dry hip hop stuff. I mean, these sound like big rock drums, like someone really played them. So
and it's interesting too, because I know there's a lot of purists out there who are just like, nope, I'm a mic in front of a cabinet. I like to capture pushing air, like there are cats that are really not into this, and they can tell you that they can hear a difference, and maybe they can, but I mean, you and I have been doing this a really long time, and if you would have told me that bass wasn't recorded direct, I would have been like, yeah, it sounds like a giant 8x10 Ampeg cabinet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
no, definitely. I mean, so many things, so many of these albums are just being done, either with V kits on the drums, whether someone's actually playing an electronic drum kit that's all triggered by MIDI or programmed just by hand, or whatever the case may be. The Meg Myers, if anyone knows her, she's a I guess, I don't know, I'd call her a pop rock artist, but her albums sound like rock. But I know for a fact, because I've watched videos, all of that stuff is in the box. All the drums are programmed. All of the guitars are through emulators. There's no amps or mics on that entire thing except for vocals. So I think that's pretty cool. And it really opens the door for people to be able to do so many creative things at home. Doesn't help the recording studios sometimes, but I think getting more out there is an awesome thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, speaking of guitars, let's take a look at some of those. Not much else going on the bass, some parallel compression. Just moving down the session here. Some piano. EQ wise, I took out all the low end on that.
Oh, and I have to point out, I forgot that this was in here. Tim McKinstry is the pianist on this track. I play with him when we go out on tour with Michael Almond, and so I just want to give credit where it's due. That's Timmy on all the piano and the keyboard parts.
Awesome, and it is some nice playing. Keyboard parts, unfortunately, didn't make it in here. The piano, even one of the earlier mixes, the piano wasn't very present in there, because you've got a lot of guitars going on, as we're going to see. So when you start talking about getting all these instruments together, piano, organ, 8 guitar tracks, vocals, a lot of those things sit in the same frequency range. So you have to kind of decide, all right, am I going to keep all of this going on? Is it integral to the song? Can things come in and out a little more than they were? So the piano, luckily, was pretty sparse to begin with. The organ just kind of took up too much space, and it really was the exact same range as these guitars we're going to look at. So the only organ line that made it in the song, as you requested,
Beautiful.
Yeah, that little guy there.
Every song needs a whirly
in there. It does. Yeah, I agree. You can never go wrong with it. So on to some of the guitars here. And again, all through your aux box there.
All the.
Go for it. Keep talking.
Yeah, all the guitars, I recorded them. I have a 68 Deluxe Reverb. I went in straight through that. I think I threw I'm pretty sure I threw the JHS Bonsai. Just basically it's a tube screamer just to give it a little extra kick in the front end. And then I went right through the aux box, and I went through all my settings on that in that video I released last week or 2 weeks ago. But I don't want to go into all the detail on the options you can get with the aux box, but everything was done via UA's aux box, and this is what it sounds like. I think it's great.
Amazing. Yeah. And not that I did this mix like years ago, but it's already funny to go through this right now and say, I didn't put any EQ on these guitars. Oh, that's kind of weird.
But you didn't have
but
to.
That's how good they sounded.
You didn't have to.
But it looks like I didn't do anything to these. I was like, well, surely I did in the maybe on the guitar bus or something, but nope, nothing there either. So, yeah. Back to the process, where people say, oh, at first I put EQ on every track, and then I had compression. And I pretty much at this point have things playing the entire time I'm mixing. And I do have a control surface. I'm not using the mix window. I actually hardly ever go to my mix window. You'll see that my edit windows are also set up so that all my plugins are here and my sends are here. When I do automation, I just throw things into the automation lane. So most of what I do is in this view. So I do have things just playing, and I really I'm jumping around. I'm like, oh, what did I just hear? Sometimes I'll leave the vocals out just to get an instrument mix. But if I hear a part that came in, like with those organs, I was like, oh, what's the organ doing? I was probably working on something else when I noticed the organ, and then just came up here and kind of took it out for a second and then decided to leave it out. So I'm not working my way from top to bottom. I'm not working my way pulling, with everything pulled all the way down and bringing in a kick drum and then bringing in a snare, especially on this session where, again, you had some sort of balance already going. I just hit play and started working. And that's how I do this. So if I didn't have EQ on those guitars, it's probably because I didn't really notice anything in there. These are the main rhythm guitars for the track. So they sound great. They really do. And put them out nice and wide. Other guitars that are going on here. Awesome telly. And there's kind of your lead. That's definitely cued a bit, brightened up a bit, some of that low end taken out, compressed just a tad as well. Maybe more than a tad. That comes comes in and out. You've got your solo. We've got those other big rhythms that are going on too. Those are EQ'd. Brightened up just a little. Some of that low end taken out. Same deal without it. Just a little darker sounding.
Yeah.
Probably have the exact same thing up here as well. Yep. So when that guy comes in.
Yeah, those were on the all special.
Yeah,
just
awesome.
A little beefier.
Awesome.
I also really like. I want to point out, like, you know, you didn't add EQ. I know a lot of times, even when I was mixing and demoing out things, I assume, oh, I have to have EQ on this track. I have to have a compressor. Yeah. And I feel like the more we get into this and the more I do this and watching how your work ethic, like, listen to it first before you start screwing with it. Yep. Because if it's fine the way it is, you're just going to make it worse.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. You know, for those types of things, you know, if I mix this right now, maybe I'm already hearing things that, oh, maybe I could have taken, you know, some more of the mids out of this guitar if it was competing with the other one, or, you know, who knows. I think if you were to mix something right now and then mix the same song in 4 months, it's going to sound a little bit different. Maybe you acquire some new techniques, but really it's just about how your ears are that day. And you know, I don't know. So I really don't have a process necessarily with mixing. It depends on how I get everything. If it's all just wave files where everything is zeroed out, then I'm probably going to bring those into a template. But even that template already has faders pulled down and, you know, send set up. So I've got a little bit of reverb already. And one thing I don't do is just start, you know, completely from scratch on a session. So that's those days are long gone, where you know, you zero everything out, get rid of every plugin. You're just wasting your own time, right? You want to have those EQs already set to at least on the track, so you can adjust them quickly, and so you're not clicking and going into everything. So, but the vocals, you know, if we listen to everything without the vocals, we might hear a little bit of effect here.
Yeah.
There's just the music. So once I get to this point, this is where I'll start saying, all right, I definitely had the backing vocals muted most of the time. Those are things that I don't have in the mix, because those are, okay, now it's time to bring in those little tiny pieces, and that now I'm just going to start bringing those faders up. So I always start with the lead, probably have all of these extra ones just kind of muted over here, and see where that lead is going to sit in there. Keep those harmonies out.
Standing in the corner in unfamiliar places, holding my hands just behind my back, feeling like a heart attack. I take a few steps and I'll swing by the bar. I do a couple shots and walk over to where you are.
So from a production point, I mean, you can really see what you did here, how much that double that comes in here makes that vocal so much more thick, right? Without that chorus doesn't have nearly as much power, so the vocal double comes in.
I take a few steps and I'll swing by the bar. I do a couple shots and walk over to where you are. Tell myself it'll be okay. When that moment comes, my brain walks away.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great time. I can't remember if you had more of that vocal in there. No, it doesn't look like you did.
I only did the doubles on the B verse.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
And then as far as the vocal, as far as treatment, you know, it all comes back to, I think you get your tools down for what you like on vocals, especially for certain styles of music.
I tend to gravitate to those awkward conversations. Standing.
I was just pulling up to see where I had to tune your out-of-tune vocals. I knew it wasn't the whole way through. I know, man. It happens. It happens. This was actually, I know. Hey, this is into the mix.
In the mix, inside the mix.
So I do have Melodyne on there. That's what I use generally for tuning. This actually only came in on the very last line of the song, so that's not doing much. Auto-tune might be on there the whole time. I think it is.
I tend to gravitate to those awkward conversations.
It's on there lightly. We'll call it lightly auto-tuned.
I tend to gravitate to those awkward conversations.
Probably could have gotten away without it, honestly.
I tend to gravitate to those awkward conversations, standing in the corner in unfamiliar places.
But it does help. And then I got some SSL channel on there, probably brightening it up just a little bit. Oh, so here's a good example of probably some of the more aggressive EQ that was done on here. And this is subtractive EQ, right? There were just some frequencies in your vocals and other stuff I've done with yours as well. I always notice this, that kind of 2 to 4K range, your vocals just have a lot of it in there, right? The mic you're using certainly helps bring that down. Those SM7s really do a great job of toning some harsh frequencies and leveling out some dynamics. But I did take, I mean, if you look at this, that's a pretty big scoop. That's like 6 decibels of a pretty wide Q of right around 3K. If we take this EQ out of here and listen to that same vocal,
I tend to gravitate to those awkward conversations, standing in the corner in unfamiliar places, holding my hands just behind my back.
So that was one thing that I definitely scooped out quite a bit. There's definitely compression on there.
I tend to gravitate to those awkward conversations.
Nothing crazy. And then I just got this new plugin from Slate, Fresh Air. Had to use it as much as I could. So there it is. I don't even know what it's doing, but it sounded good.
It looks
I
great.
tend to gravitate.
No, it's basically a harmonic, just adds harmonics, right? You can choose your kind of mid and low, or this is the high end. So without that, we can get rid of that.
I tend to gravitate to those awkward conversations.
Or maybe that, what is that? Add high mid presence. So
I tend to gravitate to
then
those
the high
awkward
air.
conversations, standing in the corner in unfamiliar places, holding my hands just behind my back.
But it really is nice. I mean, it really adds a little bit of silkiness to your vocal in that high end. So I'm really digging this tool so far. And again, I just got this a couple weeks ago, or whenever I was doing this mix. I just updated my Slate Everything bundle, and this was one of the new things they were pushing. So
Oh, right on.
yeah, it's cool. Some Vox parallel compression on there, some Vox reverb, which is all Slate stuff, and Slap, I believe, is all Slate stuff too. I mean, I'm really digging the Slate, the Everything bundle. I think they have some really cool reverbs in there. This is what I'm using for the reverbs. Vox Verb is the same plugin, just a different setting. Short decay time, some slap back, which is the repeater, which I think is cool. Preset, CLA-ish, tape slap. So Chrysler Algae.
He's on everything,
He's on everything.
everywhere.
He is. And then I just went through all the rest of the vocals like that. The chorus double is going to have some different EQ on it. I probably high pass that further just so it's not competing with your vocal. Here's a big thing that people might not do. But editing your doubles. This one, I clearly missed this very first one. But with the doubles, I make sure that there really aren't any breaths in there. And I take out things like S's, right? So that's probably an S on a song or on a word. Let's see what that is.
Oh, I do.
No, it's an but I shorten that on the double
I do.
and take out S's at the ends of words, take out T's because they're never going to hit at the same time. So you start to hear it, especially if you have like 3 or 4 of them. If you have T's, right, you don't want to hear that. So on doubles, I get pretty into the editing of those and make sure that things like this, ends before this one up here. This one had a little bit of chopping up just to make sure they lined up a little better too. You could use a program like Vocaline. I just don't have Vocaline. I should, because I do a lot of this manually, so it'd make my life a lot easier. But Vocaline is a program that would automatically line this double up with this one here as far as timing goes.
Huh.
So for anyone looking to get some editing work, that's one thing you can definitely start to do. All those breaths are out of there, so you don't get double breaths. That could even be taken back a little further, so we don't get those duplicate consonants. and S's.
Okay, when that.
Yeah, and things like that. So, and most of these were moved around just a little bit for some better time alignment between those. And then same thing with these down here with the harmonies, right? So, and then the harmony, if we look at that EQ, not a lot going on in the harmony. EQ'd. Even higher high pass. It's just kind of sitting there again, not to compete with the lead.
Feeling like a heart attack. Feeling like a heart attack.
Hear that slap delay on there
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Compressed and
Feeling like a heart attack. Feeling
just panned off to the right a little bit and lower in level than the leads. So, once I was on the vocals, it was pretty easy. It was really just making sure those drums were big, guitars were already sounding great, and then we have all these other parts that you have in here. And if you listen to those are really high pass. Those are high passed up to like 500 hertz. So if we take that off of there, we're going to hear. Right? So big difference there.
Yeah, for sure.
Just to get those out of the way. And in the mix, that's not something you hear.
And to your point earlier, you have everything going on and it's all taking up certain parts of the frequency. You got to get rid of it to have it actually pop out.
Exactly.
Find the right space.
Exactly. You got to find this space. Same thing with all these oohs and everything. I think I actually once I have stacks of oohs, talk about editing. These are heavily edited. That's a great example of things ending at different times and getting once you're over here with all these oohs going on, you don't want all these breaths coming in and out when they're not lined up, or these things ending at different times, right? So that's a great example right there. So I just put those and cut them off a little bit earlier than they were actually recorded, but no one else is going to know that. Just cleaning everything up a bit. They're all compressed. For some reason, I double compressed this one. Clearly a mistake that I just didn't notice, again, but it sounded fine, so clearly it didn't catch my ear. These are definitely going to be high passed. And low pass. So got a little bit of a band pass filter on these right here. And then, hey, there's fresh air. Got some doubler on there to make those sound a little bigger. And then I don't even know why I had the de-esser on there. Maybe I didn't even use it. And that's on there. So, and then as far as the master, hey, look at that guy.
Got fresh air on there too.
Fresh air. It's adding like a tiny bit of high end.
We should also make it known that this is not a paid promotion by any means.
I wish it was. Steven, if you want to get in on this is going to be good.
We'll talk about fresh air all day long.
Fresh air. Definitely using Ozone. Sorry, Slate, not a Slate product. And I don't know. Nope, nothing on the equalizer. Probably nothing on there either. I think these days what I'm using Ozone for a lot, honestly, is the imaging. I really try to tighten that low end right in the middle, bring out these highs and mids just a bit as well. Maximizer, I know, is bypassed. Exciter, a little bit of that low end just to get that pumping in there. And then
the one thing that I wanted to point out too is when we were speaking about this earlier, I thought it was interesting when I asked you on your master channel, like, do you have it all on while you're mixing? And you said,
I do.
Yeah. And I thought that was very interesting. Is there a reason why, or?
Well, especially when I know that I'm doing the mastering on this. I'm essentially mixing and mastering at the same time, right? And I know that these plugins bring a lot of the life to it. I mean, this Slate plugin is fantastic. You can really get some hard hitting drums with this low punch, with all this stuff, the transients, the how hard the dynamics are hitting on this, and then your gain. And if I didn't have that on there, I'm just going to do a mix and keep trying to get my drums to where I want them. But this is doing a lot of that work for me, so I'm never going to get there, right? So I mix with everything on there at this point, again, especially when I know that I'm the one who's going to be mastering this, which for most of the stuff I'm doing these days, I am. If I were sending this to somebody else, I wouldn't be hitting it as hard. If I were to pull up the meter right now.
This is what it feels like.
This is a loud mix. It's a loud mix.
Those drums sound great.
And they do. Yeah, they really do. So yeah, I always have this on a second screen, which of course you can't see right now. And I usually don't push things as hard as I do for this particular track, but I just thought, why not? And the other cool tool that I use a lot is this Magic AB, and this is something that allows you to compare your mixes. So I usually have a couple similar kind of songs in there. So if I hit play and we listen to the original mix, we can jump over to
This is what it feels
that track, see what that is. Say, yeah, that sounds pretty good. Jump to this track. Sounds better than that track. but I try to bring things that are similar. So, I know you're a big Butch Walker fan, and so tried to bring some of that stuff in there, but I could have potentially 9 other tracks going.
Oh, that's
it's
awesome.
Such a great way to keep your ears on track, right? Just to know that you have to have a reference track when you mix. If you don't, it's so easy to get lost. You think something sounds good, and all of a sudden you're like, sounds like garbage. You bring it somewhere else. So always jump back once in a while to a reference track, whether you use a plugin like Magic AB or whether you just have, just get off and jump to Spotify or something. I like having it right in here because then I can also know how loud these tracks are. I think that's why I actually pushed this so hard, because some of the tracks I was referencing were, I actually normally have, I don't know why I have this switched around right now. I normally have Magic AB before the meter so that when I jump to these other tracks, it will show me how loud these are too. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I've never seen that before. It's awesome.
Cool. And it's cheap. I think this thing is like $39 or something. So, yep.
Fantastic.
So that's pretty much what went into the mix. I mean, obviously levels and everything else and routing and, but we don't need to get into all of that. Again, it was an awesome job recording. It makes the job really easy when things are recorded well. So keep that in mind. One thing you don't ever want to say is we'll fix it in the mix. Make sure it sounds as good as you can before you actually record it. Get someone like, Dave Tyo to play drums on it. You're going to be in good shape there, and that's where we are. So, yeah.
Wow, what an awesome breakdown. It's great for me too. It looks similar to what I was working with when I recorded everything, but then it's also completely different. It's all cleaned up, everything's edited, and everything's color coded and put together in the same spot. And I don't know, I just think it looks great too. Like visually, it's something that's appealing. When you look at it, it's like, all right, it looks as good as it sounds.
Yeah. And, I think that's a really good kind of motto for anyone that's going to be doing this. If you've got sloppy visual tracks, I mean, it's just like, if things were hanging off like that, it just kind of goes to show how much attention you're paying to things. Because if you've got audio hanging out over it, whoops, still have my Magic AB plugin on. Sorry about that. There's definitely something going on over here, right? So if you're not paying attention to this, there's some big breaths. There's a little click right here, right, which you can see in the waveform. So you got to pay attention to these small details. And that's something I focus on with my students a lot too. I do a lot of critiques for my students, and I'll hear them, like counting themselves in on a vocal or something. It's like, yeah, you got to take that out. So, but yeah, be as meticulous as you can with stuff like that. Make everything look good, and then get to the sound. So.
Well, awesome, Jay. Thanks so much again, man. I really appreciate
Absolutely,
all
man.
of the work. I think it sounds great, and I'm really looking forward to the next 11 months. I know we've got a couple more already in the bag that are done, which we will be doing more videos, and we will be adding to our playlist on YouTube for Inside the Mix. So please, as always, hit subscribe. In the description box below, we've got all the links for starlingrecording.com. We've got TyoMixes.com. So go in to leave a comment, give this a like, a thumbs up, smash that bell icon so you can be notified when we release more of our Inside the Mix sessions. And as always, rock and roll. Thanks again, Jay.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon.
This is what it feels